What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Timeless Movie Podcast, episode number 20. My name is Victor Vasquez. Thank you so much for coming back and listening. This is already the 20th episode. This is unreal how many I've been able to do and accumulate. It's just super exciting to have movies back in the theaters. So I'm excited again for having you guys join me. If this is your first time listening, once again, just going to run through it really quick. I pick a movie. Typically, I try to choose new ones that I have never seen before in theaters, try to review them, give you my thoughts, try not to spoil too much, and then at the end decide, is this a timeless movie? And for me, again, what timeless means is basically, can I rewatch this movie over and over and over again, and just brings me that same joy. And so really want to hear you guys' thoughts as well. So if you have any comments, any questions, make sure to put that down below in the YouTube comments as well. Well, for today's episode, we are going to be covering Death on the Nile. That is right. I want to start off first by the reason for why I wanted to watch this movie. Main reason was it's actually the first film I got to see in 2022 in theaters. I was obviously excited to get back into the movie theaters. It had been a while. I think the last one was to go see The Matrix. I think that was like the last week of December of 2021. And so now finally got to see a new movie. So that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to go see Death on the Nile in theaters. But the second reason was because it had that murder mystery theme. There's something about the murder or the mystery aspect that makes people curious about how the story will unravel and eventually end. So again, that's one of the main areas of why I got interested in watching Death on the Nile. Another aspect what made me want to check out the film was the cast. I feel like I mentioned this every single time, and I mean that's really the point of a movie, right? Of any good film is the cast going to try to pull you in? Are there any big name actors in there? And so in this one specifically, we had a great cast that included Kenneth Branagh, we had Gal Gadot, we had Letitia Wright, Armie Hammer, Tom Bateman, Russell Brand, Rose Leslie, and more. It's just so many recognizable faces, and you can just try to, as soon as you start seeing them on screen, you start trying to figure out, okay, which actor is lying, as the story goes along. Obviously, they're all lying because they're all playing characters, but more importantly, which character is the murderer? Which one is not telling the truth? So again, just a couple of reasons that kind of got me even more incentivized to go to the movie theaters and watch this film. The final reason I wanted to watch this was just because it was actually a sequel to the previous mystery film, Murder on the Orient Express. I remember bits and pieces of that movie, and obviously the end. And so I wanted to really compare and see if this new story would be better than the first. This was one film where I did not see too many trailers of, which is pretty rare because typically I like to rely on trailers to kind of give me some good ideas or thoughts about what a movie might be about or who is going to appear in it. But I had heard so much about this and the cast and the story that I just had to check it out. All right, now I want to jump into the second segment, which is my detailed thoughts about this specific movie. I try not to spoil too much, but please understand that I'm trying to give you guys a good sense of what the movie is about. So mild spoiler warnings throughout this specific podcast. Okay, now that I've seen the film, I can honestly say that my prediction of who the murderer was completely wrong, as they typically are. But that did not affect my impression about this movie, which I thought it was pretty good. It clocked in at about 2 hours, which gave the film enough time to kind of set up a story, make every single character you see suspicious. I also enjoyed the setting of the film, which was in Egypt along the Nile River. They showed off the visuals of the pyramids of Giza, the rock carvings of Abu Simbel, and it just added this feel to the movie, which takes place in the late 1930s. Detective Hercule Poirot, I'm pretty much going to mispronounce every time I say his name. So Detective Poirot is played by Kenneth Branagh. He returns from his case on the Orient Express and is now on holiday, trying to take a break from any detective work. They even show a flashback to World War I where Hercule Poirot shows off his cunning problem-solving skills to help his side gain an advantage in the war. We get a glimpse of a past love for Hercule and how the absence of that love has really turned him into the man that he is today, which is really the greatest detective in the world. That theme of love is portrayed throughout the film and is one of the factors that causes a murder to occur. While Detective Poirot is on holiday, he attends a party that showcases some of the suspects of the film. Some of these characters are Simon and Jacqueline, played by Armie Hammer and Emma Mackey, respectively. They are shown as two people madly in love, dancing very intimately on the dance floor. We then get to meet Lynette Ridgway, played by Gal Gadot, who is best friends with Jacqueline. But with one dance between Simon and Lynette, I don't know why she accepted, Gal Gadot's character to dance with Armie Hammer, but they ended up falling in love and getting married, leaving Jacqueline alone and miserable. And that's just the beginning of the film. Simon and Lynette invite many different people in their lives to their wedding party in Egypt. But weird stuff begins to happen. Jacqueline mysteriously appears at every event to stalk and scare Lynette. And again, just trying to make chaos occur in their lives. There's also close encounters of death for Lynette, as a snake almost bites her. Then when visiting Abu Simbel, a boulder almost crushes her to death. It's almost as if the movie was foreshadowing her death every single step of the way. And come to find out, it was. Spoiler alert, again, for anyone that has not seen the movie. But I think it's at least an important detail to explain who died. That way we can at least set up the murder and the mystery of this film. There you have it. Lynette Ridgway, played by Gal Gadot, ends up being the person that was murdered on a yacht. As such, it is up to Detective Poirot to figure out the murder and understand why they did it. I obviously will not spoil who the murderer was, but as you would expect, the film tries to portray every single character as a suspect. You then start noticing characters being a bit more defensive when being questioned, until all the pieces start connecting. Granted, when the film ended, there was a specific character whose motive didn't make sense. So if you've seen the movie, let me know down below if you know what I'm talking about. That was one of the ones that kind of threw me off. That was like, okay, well, why did this character do that? Or what was their reasoning? I mean, they explained it. I didn't really get it, but maybe you guys do. So if you do get that instance or that scene that I'm explaining, feel free to comment down below in these comments in the YouTube video. Other than that, by the end of the film, I was pretty pleased at how it revealed who the murderer was and how it concluded. Definitely not the best murder mystery I've seen, but still a pretty good movie to check out. It definitely was not a terrible movie. It flowed really nicely. Again, I think what helped it out was the timing of the film. It was only about an hour and 55 minutes. So I think it definitely benefited from that short time frame. It just kind of really quickly explained, okay, here's Poirot again. You recognize him. Here are the new cast of characters. Let's find out who is the murderer. And so I think he did a really good job from that specific end. Again, I really appreciated kind of going through the cast and seeing each one of them shine. Definitely not the best movie I've seen in my life, but definitely one I enjoyed throughout the experience at the theaters. All right, now I want to jump in to the next segment, which is there an actor, actress's performance that I really liked? Like I mentioned in the first segment, this cast was pretty stacked. The film had so many great opportunities to highlight performances due to the story and what's kind of going on. It's pretty tough, but I would say that my top two performances was between Emma Mackey and Kenneth Branagh. It was really hard to decide on just one, but I think I'm going to lean more towards Kenneth Branagh. Again, how he portrays Detective Poirot is hilarious. There are moments where he's just cocky and confident. Other times he's flirting or at least, attempting to flirt with this singer named Salome, played by Sophie Okonedo. Then he gets super serious in the final moments of the film when he begins to put the puzzle pieces together regarding who is the murderer. It just makes the story more enjoyable when you have a lead that makes the murder case very believable as he tries to break down every aspect. I also want to really highlight Emma Mackey's character, Jacqueline. She plays this woman that is madly in love, but as soon as her true love, Simon, leaves her for another, she transforms into this crazy ex. And I thought she did very well at that. The craziness aspect made it seem like she could be an obnoxious choice for the murderer. But as the narrative flows, it makes you doubt that choice. Like, is she really the one? She's a part of this specific case. She's always at these events, as the murderer is trying to hunt down Lynette. And you're thinking, okay, is it her? Is it not her? She seems like she would be crazy enough to do it, but it's really not. So Emma's portrayal just adds to that doubt. Great job for both Kenneth Branagh and Emma Mackey. They both had such great performances, but I'm going to give it to Kenneth Branagh, who played Detective Poirot. All right, next segment in this podcast is explaining my favorite scene or moment of the film. Usually when it comes to my favorite moments or scenes, I can think of it very quickly and I can decide on one pinpoint, either moment or specific feeling that I got when I watched this specific scene. However, this time, I'm actually having trouble deciding if I actually had any favorite scenes or moments. I sound like a broken record, but it's really the curiosity aspect of the film overall, or really the way the film portrays the characters and makes you feel that everybody has a real chance to be the murderer. I think that was really my favorite aspect. So again, it's not really a particular scene of the movie that I liked, but rather the way the film was shot and directed that made it feel, again, very cool as the audience is trying to play detective along with Hercule Poirot. I guess there is a scene where Detective Poirot starts explaining his thought process and gets to the bottom of the murder and finds the culprits. He finds the evidences where they may have made a mistake or left a trail. It's awesome because he walks through every single piece of detail and evidence that the murderer, again, made a mistake on throughout the process of the film. And he just kind of gives you the answer very clear cut. Other than that, there wasn't much else that stood out. I mean, the music didn't really stand out to me. Maybe if there was anything else, I would probably say the visuals. I mentioned that in my second segment where I was giving my detailed thoughts. But again, I really enjoyed that they made the film take place in Egypt. Again, just like a beautiful environment, that kind of desert looking. I always enjoy looking at the pyramids of Giza. So really appreciated that. So I would say that those are really my two biggest points. Really the setting that they chose for the film, as well as the entire curiosity of you playing detective throughout the film. All right, now I want to move on to segment number 4, which is, would I recommend watching it in theaters, or should you just kind of wait for it for streaming? All right, since this is really the first film I have seen in theaters for 2022, I was pretty pumped to just be back in a recliner and enjoy the film on the big screen. However, I gotta be honest, I think Death on the Nile can definitely be streamed, and so you can definitely wait for it and don't have to check it out in theaters. Not knocking the film at all, because I do want to have the director and have all the actors and executives and really the film crew, get their just due, because they obviously they made this film for the big screen, and so I want them to make as much money as possible. But there wasn't anything that would change from the theater experience that that would actually add to the film. The visuals were looking very cool, but I don't think that would be the sole reason to recommend going to the theaters to watch this specific film. Now, the cast is great in this specific movie, but I still recommend that people can wait and watch this film in their living room if they have any streaming service available or when it becomes available. Another factor that comes into play as to why I recommend streaming might be the genre. Most murder mystery movies deal with a lot of dialogue in the films and very little action, so there's really no impact on surround sound to make things even more suspenseful. But once again, those are my thoughts, at least. Let me know what you thought about it, if you have seen Death on the Nile, and if you agree with me on, maybe this one can wait for streaming as well. All right, everybody knows what time it is. This is the final segment of the Timeless Movie Podcast, and it is, does this movie have the potential to be timeless? As of this very moment, I would say it is not a timeless movie, unfortunately. Again, for me, this is my personal opinion. This is not supposed to be something of like a final decision for everybody that watches this movie. No, this is definitely my opinion. It has much more potential than Murder on the Orient Express, to be honest, I don't really remember that much from that one specifically. But really the hardest part about this is that there may be other films of the same genre that I would rather watch. For me, when it comes to murder mystery, the top choice that comes to my head is Knives Out. I think I've mentioned this on a previous podcast, but again, it's so unique that it just lends itself to be rewatched various times so you can try to catch those little details that you didn't expect the first time viewing that movie. And so if there was another movie that I would rather watch than Death on the Nile, then that to me already kind of signals that, this movie probably was not timeless. Now, obviously, I still like the movie. The cast is really the highlight of the entire film, and really probably the biggest reason to check this film out. If you're a fan of Gal Gadot, if you're a fan of Letitia Wright or Kenneth Branagh, you can definitely check out this film because they all have great performances. But other than the performances, I just don't see myself wanting to watch this film again. Those are my thoughts on Death on the Nile. Again, not knocking it. I know that sometimes when I say that these films aren't timeless, it probably ends on a really almost sounds like a sad or negative note. It's really not. It's just me kind of looking forward and envisioning can I see myself, Victor, can I see myself watching this film again? So again, not knocking this film, Death on the Nile. I thought it was an awesome experience watching it in theaters. It was a great time just trying to be curious and play detective. But at this moment, I don't think I have the need to watch this film again. But more importantly, guys, what are your thoughts? What do you think about this film? And do you think it's timeless? Have you gotten a chance to watch this movie? And, if you have, what was your favorite performance? Did you figure out the murder in the first 15 minutes? Better than I did, because I said somebody and it was completely off. I'm embarrassed to say it, and I'm not even going to say it on this podcast. But let me know, guys. I want to hear from you down below. Feel free to comment, and that way we can interact about this movie called Death on the Nile. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. My name has been Victor Vasquez. This has been episode 20 of the Timeless Movie Podcast. Again, I appreciate everybody coming back and listening. And please make sure to stay tuned for the next episode, because for that one, we are going to be covering Uncharted. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Take care, and I'll talk to you on the next episode.